You're listening to Film Seizure. Before we get started, just a word of caution. This is a pretty R-rated show, so if you're listening at work or school or around your kids or grandparents, or hell, church for that matter, you might want to put some headphones on. Catch new episodes every other Wednesday on filmseizure.com and follow us on Facebook at Film Seizure and Twitter and Instagram at Film Seizure, all one word. But for now, if you're all set, then let's sit back and enjoy a couple of grade A assholes sit around and talk about movies.
Hey everybody, this is Jason Oliver.
And this is Geoff Arbuckle.
And this is Film Seizure. So you're watching or listening. You're listening to the this week's episode of Film Seizure, and we're continuing our examination of the Dario Argento triple feature.
Yes, so
that kicked us off. We kicked it off with Suspiria.
Yeah, and just to kind of rewind just for a moment there, on what was it, October 20th?
Yeah, yeah.
We went and saw a triple feature of Dario Argento movies at a drive-in in Shelbyville, Indiana, called the Skyline.
The Skyline Drive-In. Like them a lot, so a big shout out to the Skyline.
Yeah, and so we decided to dedicate this episode, and the next episode to the movies that we watched.
Yeah, so the next one up, this is the second of those three, is Deep Red.
Yes, and the subtitle, I guess, in some places is The Hatchet Murders.
Oh, okay.
Deep Red, The Hatchet Murders, but most of the time it's just seen as Deep Red.
And what year was this one?
1975.
75. So this was a couple years before Suspiria.
Yep.
These movies were shown in reverse chronology. They led with the classic, and then kind of went backward instead of forward.
Yeah, and also Suspiria and Deep Red both recently had, or soon to have, if not already, new Blu-ray releases. So,
yes.
So they are the most current in the zeitgeist.
And I believe that's what we saw projected were the new high def remasters.
Yeah,
they both looked freaking gorgeous.
Yeah, Suspiria was definitely new. I want to say that was maybe even a 4K restoration.
And the Deep Red looked, it
sounded
too. Just phenomenal as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really, really nice projection last night at the Skyline.
Yeah, this was the first time I've ever seen this movie.
Yeah, me too. Definitely.
I think it's an interesting movie because I think if we look at it from our present day sensibilities as a culture, it might be divisive. I think it certainly had a divisive effect on your wife. As we watched it.
She tuned out of this one pretty quickly.
Out pretty quickly, and
we'll
I know
talk about why. Yeah.
Yep. But at the same time, if we look at it through the purview of the time that it was released, the area and the world that it played in, it's kind of an interesting little social commentary of sorts in there, or at least a look at the social thoughts and feelings of European men.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a product of its time. It's interesting to me visually. Again, the movie is very striking. It's Argento really honing his craft. He really knows how to move a camera, frame a shot, terrify you with images.
Yes.
Just really, really scary images throughout this movie. And again, like the use of the Goblin score.
Yeah, this one's pretty rockin'.
This is the first one that he used Goblin for, I believe, if my research is correct. And in fact, it was his third choice. Huh. I forget who was originally tapped to do it, but it didn't work out. And then he wanted Pink Floyd
that would have been
to do the score, but they, I don't think, were interested. I mean, I don't know if
they
why
may
or
not have
not.
been able
I don't know
to.
the story there. They might not have been able to. And then he heard Goblin, and he asked them to do a little bit of music just as a test as I guess as the story goes, and he loved it. He fell in love with it, and it was a marriage from then on with Argento and Goblin.
Yeah, and Goblin. I mean, anybody who knows Italian horror knows Goblin and is a fan of just how they are able to set a tone for you. And even in this one where it's a little bit more upbeat and kind of rocking, it sets a tone that play. I mean, Suspiria kind of felt like it was outside time and space a little bit because of all the weirdness of it, and the Goblin score set that up like that. But this one, you feel like it's 1975.
Yeah.
Just going about your
there's a lot of different tone shifts in this movie too, and the score really reflects that.
Yes.
So I mean, there's probably at least 4, maybe 5 different themes even.
There's definitely
that are
variations of a song or of a tone or of a general feel.
It's one that I hadn't heard before too, and I'm picking this one up. I'm super excited to jam to this. Just in my car and my headphones, because it is a killer score. I mean, in many ways, I like it better than the arguably more iconic Suspiria score.
I would say it's easier to listen to on a regular basis, with one exception: that creepy goddamn kid theme that plays whenever the killer's around.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that's.
I don't know if they scored that or not. Yeah.
But it's
creepy.
Yeah, it's creepy. But you can't just drive around town listening to Suspiria,
right?
But this could.
It's got almost like a prog. It's like a prog disco, like metal vibe to it at times.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is phenomenally good.
Yes. I mean,
and the Tarantino, there's like the Battle of Honor and Glory or whatever that song is from the Kill Bill. Like that almost feels like it had its roots.
It was inspired by or something. Yeah, I don't know, but it definitely like heavy bass line and it's a good soundtrack.
For me, the soundtrack, and I'm really kind of gushing here. It really kind of kept the movie running for me. It moved the movie for me.
Yeah, I kind of have a different take from the movie, just from my experiences of watching other Italian horror and giallo movies, which we'll get to as we move in. The movie, whereas Suspiria, spoiler alert, is, if you didn't listen to the last episode, Suspiria is a supernatural horror film. It deals with witches and spells and actually like 150-year-old woman at one point who's still alive. This one is actually, despite one little tiny bit of a hint of the paranormal, at the very least, I actually have a theory on that here we'll get to, but it is it is a straightforward kind of crime movie. I mean, it is a straightforward trying to figure out who is doing the bad things, and that's
it feels a little like a late era Hitchcock film in a lot of ways, like his Frenzy film maybe.
Yeah. So I guess we should probably just start with
let's start from the beginning.
One thing that I immediately noticed, they wasted no time on credits. No. You can barely read the credits. They move by so fast and just throw you right into the movie. It almost felt like how credits are done today, where they try to limit that as much as possible and just throw you right in,
which is kind of interesting considering the pace of this movie kind of drags in the middle.
And that's not an uncommon thing, and we'll get to that. But the movie opens at it opens with the retelling of a crime that you can't really see everything that's happening, but you see a bloody knife drop, and then it cuts to a lecture, where
we're in an auditorium.
Yeah, we're in an auditorium where I think there's like a big bright red curtain and everything
behind the speakers.
Yeah,
at the panel,
again, utilizing that color that Argento likes to do.
And there are bright lights reflecting on the stage, which actually is sort of important later. So it's sort of like if you've ever been on stage, you can't really see your audience.
Yeah.
Right.
So that does become important later. But there is a psychic by the name of Helga Ullman, who is...
I like that you're so good with the names.
I just wrote it down. I was like, oh, I'm going to need to remember this. She's actually probably more of a telepath than a psychic, because she can't really see the future. She can't really see the past, but she can glean things from people that she can tune into. Because at one point, she's up there on the stage with a parapsychologist who, there's another guy there, but he kind of fades off.
It's not really clear what his deal is.
The parapsychologist, whose name I wrote down, is Giordani.
Professor Giordani.
Yeah, he is the parapsychologist who's kind of running this lecture for Helga, and he's asking her questions and asking her to kind of, look into the crowd and demonstrate her powers. She says that she picks up a guy who's got his hand in his pockets and he's holding onto a set of keys, and in particular, he is kind of playing with a key that is longer than the other ones. And she kind of points in the general direction. She's like, "You, sir." And he's like, "Yes, I am, actually." And he pulls out the keys and he shows it. And the Giordani says, "Hey, you don't know each other," doing that.
He plays the role of the skeptic, Yeah.
And so...
he's like, "No, I just arrived 3 hours from the airport.
Exactly. It's like
he offers what's reasonably proof that he's not in on the game, I guess.
That he doesn't know anybody, or at least offers a...
And he does seem sort of incredulous about how she could have known these things.
Right. So they talk a little bit more, and she starts to kind of have a... she also knows the guy's name.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, too, because she gleans that. But then they kind of talk, and then she kind of has a little bit of a freak out, and she says that she feels something sharp, like it's something that's stabbing her, and she's being filled with like dark feelings, and she's telling somebody, "Get out," and she kind of just says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me, something's out there," and then she kind of tries to tune in on it, and she says, "Hey, you out there, why are you putting these thoughts into my head? What's going on here? What are you doing? Stop." And somebody gets up and leaves. But because they're on the stage and the light's on them, they can see figures move, but they can't really suss out any identity. Mm-hmm. We also get the I'm going to say quote unquote killer, because that she's talking about death and that sort of stuff. And we see the person's POV getting up and walking out, and that person encounters somebody in the restroom, and it's implied that person in the restroom's killed, but they don't ever really say anything.
I don't really know that happens.
But then the person's just kind of hanging out, off to the side, watching as the person's answering more questions about, I saw this person. They must have killed that person, because they do talk about somebody. They do go back and talk to those people.
They do, but they don't mention anything about a murder. They just ask.
They just ask who they saw.
Who they saw, and they said, "I do remember seeing a movement of someone possibly getting up, but
from the 6th or 8th row."
Yeah, but the lights were too bright. Yeah, and that's really all it's really left at.
Yeah, but you do see the killer's POV from behind a curtain, just kind of watching as these things are being revealed.
Yeah.
So then it kind of cuts to.
Well, I think what I find really interesting about this scene is I really like talking about sort of the cycle of influence in things that other film auteurs sort of pick up on from maybe their peers, or from those filmmakers that they draw influence from. And this scene in particular has been cited I don't have an actual cited reference for this, but I don't know if it's conjecture or speculation, or if David Cronenberg has actually come out and said this, but it's pretty clear seeing the scene that it was an influence on the auditorium demonstration of scanning in the movie Scanners.
Yeah.
You've got the panel in the auditorium. You have sort of the demonstration of this paranormal skill, and this sort of back and forth questioning, and then something sort of comes unexpectedly, we'll say. And if you've seen Scanners, you know that the test was influenced by another scanner who exploded the true person who was kind of displaying their skill. Explodes their head.
It's one of the best head exploding things ever.
So it's interesting to me, having read that before coming into Deep Red. I wish I sort of hadn't. I wish I kind of would have come to that realization on my own. But at the same time, maybe I would have missed it. I don't know. But it's definitely a clear inspiration, and I like thinking about things like that, where Cronenberg watched Deep Red and was creatively inspired in some way to write a totally different movie and scene from a totally different movie, but that drew just a tiny bit of inspiration from that kernel of creativity. That
is kind of interesting, because I think that Argento is, we talked about it in the last episode with Suspiria, that he's very influential. There's not too many good horror makers who would not point to Argento and say, yeah, he knows how to do, be it use of color or use of angles or shot composition or the use of score or whatever. He knows what he's doing, and we want to be more like that. This movie is actually full of some really cool shots like that, and very cool scenes that really are kind of unnerving at times. There's a couple in particular, but
isn't it interesting how you could take a film like this, Deep Red, which is clearly some Hitchcock inspiration going on here, where Argento could look at Hitchcock and draw inspiration to make a film like this, and then the next generation of filmmakers coming right on the heels of Argento, and honestly becoming even his contemporary, could be inspired by him at the same time.
Right.
It's just we kind of take that for granted, I think, and a lot of times it's so perfectly inspired that it feels like a ripoff. But when it's like this, where it's just something like, oh my gosh, there's this super iconic Cronenberg scene. One of the probably the most famous things he's ever shot.
Yeah.
And it had a genesis from this little beginning scene in a relatively obscure Argento film.
And it's not even, it wouldn't even be considered Argento's best.
No.
In almost any circle.
And I feel like it was even critically, this was a movie that I think there might have been some reappraisals later that kind of gave it its due, but it wasn't really very well liked when it came out, even.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't even realize that. I can kind of understand that, because if you look at it looking at it from the view of it being in 1975. It's probably fairly unremarkable.
And understand too that it's the star of this movie, David Hemmings, is a pretty big star in Europe.
I recognized him just in general. He's a British guy I've seen in movies that I've seen. Of course I've seen him in movies I've seen, but it's not like just like, oh, I saw a weirdo one-off movie that he happened to be in, and I recognized.
Well, he was
in big things.
Yeah, he was in Blow Up. That was a huge movie. A very influential movie, a critical darling. Critics know who David Hemmings was when this movie came out, and they went to see it and they hated it. Yeah, that's basically what happened.
And I can maybe understand why at that time it was, because there are some there's some tough subject matter that maybe people would not have appreciated just in the mid-70s at a major theater, or something like that. But so after this this lecture, the lady goes back to her room, and I don't know if she's calling her husband or boyfriend or friend or whatever, but she's telling the person on the other line or the other end, yeah, she's still there in Italy, and she's gonna be there for a couple of more months or something like, or a couple of weeks, but that she's home alone. Sometimes I kind of go back and forth even today. Was she actually psychic?
Right. Was she just a fraud?
Was she just a fraud?
I like that thought. That sort
because the way that she's talking to the person when there's nothing remarkable about her.
No.
She doesn't. She seems put upon. Like she's like, oh God, I got another show to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem. She doesn't seem to be. Other than the fact that she felt something negative. Maybe that's just part of the show.
Yeah, it's part of the act.
But I don't know. I mean, that would be something interesting.
Because the guy with the 3 keys in the name, I mean, I don't know, he could say whatever the fuck he says in the auditorium, but she could have easily have coordinated that with him.
Absolutely.
There was no real empirical proof that he wasn't in it with her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
But else, all this is kind of laid to rest anyway. I mean,
it doesn't take too long for that to be thrown away.
The absolute end of the supernatural element of this movie.
Yeah, because the killer comes busting into her apartment or room or whatever, and cleaves her with a hatchet multiple times. And meanwhile, out on the street outside, our main hero, Marcus, who is David Hemmings,
right? He's hanging out with his other buddy, Carlo.
Well, they're not hanging out.
They're not hanging out? Oh, he meets him on the street.
He meets him on the street because Carlo's a drunk on the street.
Yeah, Carlo's a drunk on the
street. And
they
come across each other. And
they're both pianists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they say the word pianist a lot.
A lot.
At least for the first...
It's like, oh, you're a pianist. Yeah, I'm a pianist. We're both pianists.
Yay, pianists.
Pianists.
But anyway, so there's a really cool thing on this street. There's a diner in the background that looks like whatever the name of that painting is.
Oh, God.
Where there's the people who are like sitting around this diner late at night. It looks like that. Exactly, except every now and then you see somebody moving in there, so it's just actually just people in a diner.
Yeah, it's like an Edward Hopper.
Yeah,
it's very much staged like an Edward Hopper painting.
Yeah, but people are actually in there moving around and going about their business.
But
barely. Most people are sitting deathly still.
Yeah, I mean, I was more focused on that backdrop to the point where is it a painting? Is it not? And trying to look for movement.
The only time I saw movement was when it was a wide shot. When it was focused on Marcus in the foreground, and it was directly head on in the background. Nobody moved, and that's an interesting little touch because it's a quiet street. There's hardly any life, which helps because they start hearing Helga screaming.
Yeah, they hear a big scream.
And Carlo's like, I don't know, somebody just got raped, I guess.
Yeah.
Hey, salute.
That's pretty much what he does. Yeah, he's like, maybe someone getting raped.
But I mean, he's a drunk, so he's kind of an ass.
So you're kind of like, well, he's a dickhead.
Yeah. So they look up, or at least Marcus looks up into a window.
I think they kind of separate ways, right?
Yeah, they do.
Separate ways.
But not too far apart.
Not too far apart.
But David looks up and he sees, or Marcus looks up, and he sees Helga like pounding on her window.
Yeah, she's like pressed to the glass again with the glass and Argento.
And she gets pushed through the window, and basically her throat gets a big chunk of broken glass shoved into it. Marcus runs upstairs. He only sees. He doesn't really see anybody leave, but he hurries upstairs. And like an asshole, pulls her off of the glass and ruins the... I mean, I guess maybe
I thought about this. Maybe she could be alive. But at the same time, like, I don't know what the proper protocol is there.
Leave her!
I mean, it could be that...
Call the cops!
It's almost like you take the knife out of the wound. That could do more damage, right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think you call... Yeah, you don't touch shit.
You call the cops. Which, this is a problem that I mean, I understand why it's there in this movie, but it becomes a problem throughout the movie. We'll get to that as we kind of move through here. But so he pulls her off the glass, and then he looks out the window as Helga, if she's not dead, dies at this point. And he looks out the window and he sees somebody in a brown raincoat. Again, much the same as Suspiria. Sees a person wearing a brown raincoat running away from the scene. He talks to the cops, and the cops basically are like, okay, well, we'll investigate this. Lady reporter walks in at this point. We learn her name is Gianna. And
she's like my favorite character.
She is an awesome character because she is so detailed about what her character is.
Yeah.
Like, she's annoying to people because she always shows up, and like, the cops are like, oh, who let you in, basically.
Yeah.
And then
she's a tough broad who I feel like has had to work for every inch of what she's been able to accomplish in her career because she's woman.
Yeah, and she's plucky, which I think makes her it gives her that annoying.
She's
edge.
A little bit of a cliche in a '70s film, but honestly, kind of refreshing.
She is certainly a comic relief character in an odd sort of way.
Yeah.
So she comes in and she's taking pictures with her little shitty camera because she doesn't have a camera guy with her. She doesn't have a Jimmy Olsen.
Well, at least she had a fucking camera.
She did have a camera
because Marcus didn't have one later when he could have really used one.
Yes, and so Marcus eventually leaves.
Yeah,
and is down. He goes back to the street where he sees Carlo. And he's like, so, did you see anybody run by here? And Carlo's like, nah, no.
He's all drunk and stupid.
Pianist. And he says, he basically tells Marcus at that point, why do you care? The fuck do you care? It's like, just leave. Go home. Yeah. Enjoy your life. Somebody lost theirs, but there's nothing you can do about it.
Go play piano.
Go play piano, yeah. So basically, that's what he tells them. The next day, he goes to the funeral, or maybe it's a couple days later, I don't know. He goes to the funeral, and Gianna's there, and she's telling him about all of the people who are at Helga's funeral. And it's so funny because...
Oh, one little thing that's important, I think, before we get there, is David says something about a painting.
Oh, yeah, there was a painting that's missing.
When he went into the apartment... He saw a painting, but when all the commotion and the police came and everything, it seemed like something was missing.
Yes.
And his drunk buddy pianist Carlo was like, maybe it was something important. I don't know. I'm drunk. It was like, I don't know.
You killed that Italian drunk guy accent.
I know. It was really kind of a stupid thing that happens, and it's sort of important later, but not. Like that whole painting.
It becomes the entire.
It is like the biggest red fucking herring of the movie.
But it does ultimately play in a very important part.
True. It kind of does.
It plays both absolutely no part and all the parts.
Yeah.
But we'll when we get to that, we'll definitely explore that.
But it's important. Like it is. It's like a throwaway thing. I don't know. We'll get there.
So Gianna's telling Marcus all about everybody who's attending the funeral, and she actually is like really excited to tell him like all of her knowledge and all of her information, and he's like kind of like backing away. It's like, God, lady, it's like, God, back up a little bit, just chill. It's like she's kind of playing up she's a little bit of a wreck. She's a little bit of a little annoying.
She's kind of a tornado.
Yeah, kind of. And but what's hilarious is that she published his name, and picture as being the witness
to the killer of the murder, and he makes a comment about it.
Yeah, he's like, "Well, thanks," which sends him down this path that he may have already kind of been on, but now is definitely fully on. That is so frustrating. Because now he becomes essentially the lead investigator, and the cops are not seen until the last 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And he is now set upon himself that he is going to solve the murder.
Yeah.
Why?
There's
no reason.
There seems to be no real reason.
I mean, other than a morbid curiosity.
That's what it is. He talks to Carlo about the painting, and again, that's the whole crux of the reason why he does this is because he feels like his memory has failed him in some way, and he wants to put that piece back together. It's almost like he's a very meticulous person in his daily life. Everything is very accounted for. And this one thing in his memory he can't account for, and he wants to follow that through to make himself whole.
That kind of makes sense, because if you think about the lead characters in each of these three movies, they're all artistic. Mm-hmm. One's a dancer, Marcus is a pianist, and the guy in the third movie is a writer.
Yeah.
And they are meticulous people because they have to do things a certain way. Because we even see David later writing music, and it looks very meticulous, and he does not go very far tinkering on the piano without writing something down, which is how you write music, I'm sure, but it's he's very meticulous about things, and you see that. It almost even becomes his undoing, because now he's set upon this path of being... He's going to be the hero. He's going to solve the crime. And Gianna is like trying to say, hey, I want to help. I'm a reporter. I can get places that you can't because you're just a fucking musician.
Right.
He's a music teacher.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, women are...
Yeah, he basically... he literally says women are weak.
Yeah, the women's lib isn't going to jive with his...
Yeah.
And, he's a stuffy old British fuck. He is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And so, yeah, and this is where we get to our point where half the world is going to immediately jump off the train.
Yeah, because here's the problem. You could call it a product of the 70s. You could call it like the British machismo, or chauvinism, whatever you want to call it. But honestly, it's just a point in the movie where you just don't really give a shit anymore about your main character, because he's kind of a dickhead. He's so very full of himself, and he really honestly has no business investigating this thing in the first place,
and yet he refuses not to.
Yeah.
And he refuses help.
Yeah. And
it's like, you're okay, well then go die, is kind of how I feel.
Yeah, like Gianna actually has a legitimate reason to kind of follow up on leads. She's a reporter. She's got a story to write. Man. It's her job.
Yeah.
And she's probably really good at it.
She proves herself to be competent in a lot of ways. Now, granted, she has a shitty car.
She does have a shitty car.
That if you lock the door, you got
to get a mechanic to open it. And the seat, you basically sit on the floor of the car.
You sit on the floor.
Yeah.
It's a dumpy ass car. And she's a wreck, but she's also capable. She proves herself by doing a arm wrestling.
Yeah, this is actually a hilarious scene,
because he's saying it's like women are weak, women can't do anything, and she's like, oh yeah, well let's Indian wrestle.
Indian wrestle is what they call it. Yeah,
which is I guess that's one term for it.
I've heard of like Indian
rope burns.
Rope burns. Yeah.
But so he's like, all right, fine, and she like immediately pins him.
Yeah,
and he's like, and he flips the fuck out.
He does. He's immediately his fragile male mystique, or if you will, is immediately broken. It's hysterical.
Yeah, he's like, oh, you cheated, blah 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 blah. You cheat. I'm not going to play these stupid games if you're going to cheat. And she's like, all right, well, I'll do it again.
So he sets some ground rules. He makes sure that both their elbows on the table and they start at the right time, and it's a pretty good. They're evenly matched, honestly.
But then she does break the rule of lifting her elbow.
She lifts her elbow up and
just to shut him down.
But it's funny because he's so
fragile.
Yeah,
he's fragile.
Yeah,
and that's what it is, because he is. Obviously, that's probably meant to say that he's missing something, and that's why he feels the need to solve this crime.
But again though, that's that to me.
But it's unlikable.
It's very unlikable.
Yeah.
Like I just do not care for him at all. The rest of the movie. We made a comment even I think to each other as we were watching it with all the pianists and everything, and I said, yeah, he is a pianist. He's a dick. Because he is, and you just don't care about him. And lots of cool things happen from here on out. But our main protagonist, unfortunately, is not someone you really root for.
No, and I mean, again, we talk about it's like, I mean, there is a certain truth to the fact that he does come off as very pompous. Multiple times, he is flustered, frustrated with other people, and it's not just women, but just other people in general. It is, though, kind of an interesting part of that time, because Argento is saying that the girl's capable, but he also knows he can't, and this, I think this is based on a book, but he also knows he can't sell this movie with a female lead.
Maybe, yeah.
Not in this type of movie.
She has so many great lines that scene. She's like, "Oh, you're a big, strong male." Yeah. She really goes. I mean, she belittles him completely into the dust. She eventually ends the conversation about him going on his own way with the investigation with "Have it your own way, stupid."
Yeah, right. And I mean,
so good. Like, I want to follow her in this movie, not him.
Which is funny because I said at this point it'd be hilarious if he goes through the entire movie, finds out who the killer is, and she's like, "Yeah, I found out 3 weeks ago. He's already in jail." That would have been hilarious.
It would have been.
And maybe in a comedy, that's that you could have gotten away with something like that. But so now,
bless you, Geoff.
Oh my gosh. We'll edit that out. So anyway, so at this point now, he's set on the path.
Yes.
He's gonna solve this murder by whatever means necessary. Which doesn't make any sense, but some cool things start to happen. So the killer does know who he is.
Yes.
And finds out relatively easily where he lives. And there's an awesome scene where Marcus is writing music. He's playing his piano. He's writing
really
music.
Cool.
And, you see the killer, like, setting up the stalk.
Yeah.
He's going to stalk him. And, he plays his creepy theme song, which is interesting because the creepy theme song is not in every scene with the killer.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that we'll get to. But, so he says, so he's, like, writing his, and he realizes somebody's in the apartment with him. And he just kind of tries to play it off like, I don't notice anything. And he just keeps going. But he's grabbing like a weapon and everything. And, it's real tense. And you really feel like, man, at any point in time, we might get our hope that Gianna leads this movie. Because he might die. And so he, like, real quick, like, a phone rings. Mm-hmm. And it happens to be Gianna. But the phone rings, and at that time he gets a chance to close the door of the room that he's in and locks it, keeping the killer out. And while he's on the phone, like, basically saying, it's like, I don't know who this is, but somebody send help.
Right.
And which is kind of neat because he is asking for help.
Yeah.
A guy who's supposedly so strong himself is like, I don't care who this is, I need help.
It was before he realized it was Gianna, though. Sure.
Yeah, it's like, whatever, stupid woman. Like,
I don't need your help.
I don't need your help.
Oh, it's Gianna.
Yeah.
I'll take my chances.
But the killer whispers through the door, and it's super creepy, basically saying, it's like, you got me this time, but you will die. I will get you. And it is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
it's a cool scene. It's a creepy end to that scene, and I mean, it's Argento being good at setting up tension and setting up that scene of something's off.
Yeah,
I mean, you can't see anything, but it's there, and it's right there.
The whispering killer also seems to be a motif in Argento films as well.
Yeah,
we definitely see it in the Crystal Plumage.
Yeah, and but it's creepy and it sticks with you.
Yeah.
So he is now. There's a hilarious scene shortly after that where he calls back Gianna, but he's calling from a coffee shop. And the phone is right next to the espresso machine, and he can't hear anything, and it's just this insanity going on behind him. And he's like, "Do you have to put this thing next to the phone?"
Right next to the phone? That's crazy. And of course, he's calling her, and she's in her at the newspaper, and there's all
Right,
sorts
and
of
there's all sorts of
commotion
commotion
going on
at the
there.
news-
So neither one of them can hear each other.
But he decides to go off, and he's going to investigate more things. He finds out about a lady named, I think it's Amanda
Well,
Rigetti.
have we talked about when he goes to see Marco's mom yet?
Oh yeah,
Because he wants to follow up more on like the what Marco said about
Carlo.
the paint, or Carlos, yes,
Yeah.
about what Carlo said about the painting.
Yes,
So he's looking for Carlo.
Right, he goes to where he thinks Carlo lives, and his crazy ass mom,
Yeah.
named Martha,
Yes.
is there, and she's a former actress, and she is loony.
She's
tunes.
loony as hell. Yeah.
But it's kind of awesome that
She's
the actual
hysterical.
actresses like pictures from different movies that she's done is actually on.
Oh,
the
that's
screen.
cool. I didn't
They're
notice
on the wall. But she's like, hey, yeah, Carlo's not here. And she keeps thinking that he's
an engineer, which is funny.
she keeps confusing him for this engineer person that.
Yeah.
Which I think I know who the engineer is.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And he's like, no, I'm a pianist. And she says, well, I play piano. You want to play a duet? And he's like, no, I just want to find Carlo.
Trying to find Carlo, yeah.
And he's like super annoyed with her. And she's cuckoo. I
Yeah.
mean, she's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And she's like, all right, well, go see if he's at this place.
Yeah.
And this is who I think the engineer is. But he knocks on the door.
It could be.
And somebody opens the door, and you think it's a woman. But no, it's a guy.
It's a guy, yeah.
And he looks like Prince.
He does.
He looks straight up like Prince. Like Argento's influence may have stretched this far.
He almost looks like Prince and Prince's guitarist from Purple Rain if you combine them together, because of like the wispy mustache. But yeah, there's definitely some Prince of the Revolution thing going on here.
All of the revolution is embodied in this one person. And so Carlo is there. And Carlo's like, oh, great.
You caught me.
You caught me. It's like, not only am I a drunk, but I'm also a faggot. Which is
he's
kind of interesting because
this
Marcus doesn't.
self-loathing gay man, basically.
Yeah, and Carlos doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't.
Or Marco doesn't give a shit. Marcus,
yeah.
Marcus doesn't give a shit that Carlo's gay.
Yeah.
He's like legitimately cares about this guy.
He does.
You know, and he's like, hey, it's like, no, I don't give a shit about that, basically. I just want to talk to you more about this thing. And,
the painting.
And Carlo's like, whatever.
Yeah, he's kind of like, I don't remember what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The painting was important, blah, blah, blah. Who cares?
And, and the lover is like, it's like, he's a good guy.
He even says, I love that guy, but he's such a downer.
Yeah, like, he's a wreck. Like, Carlo is completely and totally like, you would expect Carlo to be killed in most movies. This movie's a little different, but in most movies you would expect Carlo to get ripped one night and be offed.
I also like, he said this to him. He said, this is where you get the real motivation for why Marcus is going to follow through on this. Because Carlo, I think it presses him again. It's like, why do you care so much? And this is where Marcus says, that the painting is important. It's a lapse in my memory. I want to make that whole. I want to figure out what's going on, why I'm remembering something that maybe wasn't there. And he says, I'm challenging myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then Carlo says, and this is such a sad thing to say. He says, I challenge myself and I always lose. So he's like in this total wallow of despair. Yeah, and
he's a pretty tragic character, and we'll find out even more why he's that later. But so he goes and he continues to investigate. He does end up finding out about a book that was written that was called
The House of the Screaming Child.
The House of the Screaming Child,
yeah,
which was written by Amanda Rigetti, which is about a murder that happened some years before that most people don't remember much about, and it just kind of faded into memory. And so we do find out that we do see what's going on with Rigetti.
He finds this out from the parapsychologist and another professor.
Yes, and
when he goes to see them, when they do they go back to the theater. They try to figure out, who got up and left. They then they start to talk about some of this. The House of the Screaming Child. I don't know how exactly that got put into it, but they start talking about the children's song, and like this has become the leitmotif of the killer.
Right.
Like these childhood images and references.
Yes.
Yes.
So, because the parapsychologist is also a for real psychologist.
Yes.
So he understands the working mind of a killer.
Mm-hmm.
And so that leads to a scene at Amanda Righetti's home where without the music playing, without the creepy kid music playing, she gets attacked. And
but there are creepy baby dolls being hung from the ceiling.
As she's
everywhere.
walking around her house, there are these little naked baby dolls being hung by nooses, little nooses, all over the house. And that's when you get a really cool scene where there's a shot that you see over her shoulder, and there's
into the closet. Into the closet, and all you see is the black of the closet, but the eye.
Yeah, that's there. But you also see his silhouette.
Oh yes, behind her down the hallway.
Yeah, and so she gets into the bathroom, and she basically gets hit. She gets knocked out. She gets bonked.
Yeah.
And then the killer runs a super hot bath and starts to drown her in it, and she gets
scalded. Her face gets scalded from it.
And then he basically just throws her down, and she's still kind of alive. And she goes to use her finger to write in the steam against the wall who it was.
Right.
And but then she dies.
Yeah.
And also the killer opens the window so it all goes away.
Yeah.
So the steam has someplace to go. And so the parapsychologist starts to investigate a little bit more about her death. Although Marcus does know what's...
Marcus finds the body, doesn't he?
Yes, because he goes in and he realizes something's amiss. Now, all of the hanging baby dolls are gone.
So he, at this point, is like, all right, I think I call the cops. Cops come. He's, at this point, all right, I'm going to go on to the next clue.
Yeah, and
I'm gonna go to the house where these murders happened.
Right, and Giordani says, "Hey, I'll
go follow up.
I'm gonna follow up
house.
on this stuff."
Yeah,
and that's when he discovers she tried to write something.
Yeah,
and he's kind of
the bathroom again.
Yeah, and he's kind of proud of himself.
Yeah, he's super proud of himself. Yeah.
And so he has a new lead to follow, and Marcus follows this lead to this super creepy house.
Yeah.
With this guy who's old fat Han Solo.
Yeah,
he's got Han Solo's vest and white shirt.
He is.
He did the Kessel run in 20 parsecs instead of 12. But he's got this really weirdo little ginger daughter.
Oh, she's so weird, man.
And he scolds her for...
Well, he first sends her to show Marcus the house.
Yeah,
and to let her in because he's the
groundskeeper of this house that is abandoned.
And then so they go off, and then he calls her back. He scolds her and calls her back to him, and he slaps her right across the face.
And he said, "I told you never to do that again."
And then she just she's a little thing. He is huge,
yeah,
and
she's
just a little thing,
or something.
And she just looks at him with this evil grin and laughs at him.
Yeah, and it's like, what's wrong with this?
And scurries back off to Marcus, and Marcus is like,
what
was that about?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, don't mind my father, he's crazy.
But then you see at the feet of her father is a gecko that's been stabbed through the throat
with a quilting needle. Yeah,
or something. Yeah,
and that's fucking weird.
Yeah, she's just a torturer. I mean, she just tortures animals apparently,
and it doesn't really go anywhere.
Right. Yeah, no, it doesn't. There is one thing. There is one thing that is important to ascertaining the identity of the killer.
Yeah.
But so he goes to this house that's worn down, and so this is where things kind of happen. I don't remember exactly what order things happen, but basically what happens now is he looks around the house. And it's this creepy ass abandoned house that's kind of in disrepair. He's looking around inside. He finds behind behind a plaster wall, a drawing.
Yeah, he kind of chisels it away.
Yeah,
and he sees this child's drawing.
Yeah, which basically depicts a murder of somebody.
Yeah,
and you see a person who's been stabbed,
and a little boy,
and a littler person smiling with holding the knife.
Yeah.
And he finally leaves that place because he's seen all that he can. He could have used the fucking camera at this point to take a picture of what he saw.
Even Gianna's shitty camera could have used it.
Could have used it. He leaves, and when he leaves, something really cool happens. Another piece of the plaster falls off and reveals that another person...
Yeah, there's more to the painting.
Right, that somebody else witnessed the killing. And... so he goes back to his home. Meanwhile, Giordani is like piecing together like what could be happening, who's behind everything, but they haven't connected yet, and they don't ever connect because we find out later why. But so Marcus goes back to the house because he realizes from a picture that he has, holy shit, there's a whole window missing from the outside of this. Something's been walled off. And
meanwhile, something has happened to Giordani.
Yeah, we're getting to that.
Okay.
So he goes back to the house, and fucking action man that this pianist is, he brings a pickaxe.
You were so angry at this scene.
Don't you have a fucking... Fuck you, a fucking musician. You're not a goddamn action man.
He climbs out on like the molding, basically, of this house to kind of get up to where this window should be and tries to like pickaxe it.
Fucking asshole.
And of course he slips and he falls, and the only thing holding him up at that point is the pickaxe.
Yeah, and I'm like, you fucking idiot. And he drops something important. He drops his flashlight.
His flashlight, yeah.
Like an asshole.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, dude.
It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, fucking prick.
So I don't remember what happens, but he eventually gets inside.
He figures out what the room that's missing is, and he sees a dead body in there.
Yeah, he busts through the wall and he sees, somebody walled this entire room off.
And there's a dead
window
body
and everything,
inside.
And there's a dead body inside.
And he gets bonked on the head, and the place catches on fire. Meanwhile, Giordani is alone in his study.
Yeah.
And he's starting to figure out who's what, you know. But he hears noise.
Because he knows, okay, interesting. What was her name at the Righetti house? Lady Righetti.
Oh, Amanda Righetti.
He realizes Righetti knows who the killer is. She saw the killer, of course. You could see your killer and not recognize who your killer is, but she recognized the killer. And she was going to identify the killer. So he knows, all right, that's interesting.
Yeah,
what could it be? Who could it be that it would be someone that would be motivated to kill her, that who would know, who she would know?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, so he is capable.
He's about to crack the case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he hears that somebody's in his house, and it's like, oh boy, we know what's going to happen here. It's like, we're going to hear that creepy music. But we don't. We get about 4 minutes of silence.
Yeah.
As he's looking around the house, and he's like, doesn't see anything. He comes back and then goes into another room, doesn't see anything. He comes back to his study, and he gets what looks like some sort of a stabby thing.
Yeah,
it's like a letter opener, maybe.
It's the scariest letter opener I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's pretty thick.
It's probably like a 1-inch blade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's gonna defend himself.
Yeah.
And he's looking at this door. He's like waiting for the person to come. And he's like, all right, I'm ready. And then next to it is a fucking closet door, right? And he's like looking through the open door to his study. And then the closet door opens up, and this fucking creepy ass fucking clown doll comes out, and he's like, and he's like, fuck, this is a fucking nightmare, god damn it. And he's like, and he cuts half the fucking head off. And and this shit is the scariest fucking thing I've seen in years. Because it's just some sort of a doll thing that's like, and it like has a creepy movement to it. It's a creepy doll.
Yeah.
It's a puppet too. It looks a little bit like the little guy from Jigsaw.
A little bit like Jigsaw. Yeah.
Or whatever the guy's name. Billy is the little puppet's name.
I don't know. This is Jigsaw.
Jigsaw, yeah. And he's like, blah, 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 blah. And he like cleaves half the fucking head off. And so he's like, well, shit, that was a goddamn nightmare. And he and so then now he's distracted, and the killer comes in and takes him by the back of the fucking head and starts smashing his mouth into the corner of the mantle of the fireplace, like breaking his teeth out and everything. And it's like, fuck, man, this guy's getting it bad. And then he gets stabbed in the throat.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe even bashes him into the mantle one more time. Just I don't know. I would have. Because that was way cooler. I'd be way more cool with that shit than the fucking creepy thing that came out. So now Giordani, who knows who the killer is dead.
Yes.
Marcus is now outside of the building that's burning down, and Gianna's like, "Oh, I got to you just in time.
Yeah,
I found out where you were, and I pulled you out one more minute, and you would have been a cooked duck."
Yes, exact words. And Geoff and I at this point were like, "She's the killer."
Absolutely. Why is she there? She wears dark eyeshadow, which you constantly see the killer applying heavy dark eyeshadow or eyeliner.
Yep.
And we're like, oh, I don't trust her one bit.
Not at all.
And so they go back to the groundskeeper's house, and he sees the drawing.
Creepy ginger girl.
Creepy ginger girl has drawn an exact duplicate of the thing that he saw on the wall, and he's like, "Where did you get this? What is this? Blah blah blah."
Yeah.
And he's like attacking her.
How could you have seen this?
How could you have seen this? What do you know about this? What is this? And she's like, "I didn't draw it. What? This is not mine. I copied it from art that I found
at the school,
like in some sort of." They keep records of every piece of homework that the kids ever put in. And the dad at this point is like defending his monster of a child, and he's like, she's telling the truth. She didn't create this. She copied it. And so that leads them to the school. They're going through all of the records of all of the past art projects, and he finds the art. But Gianna is going to go call the police, and creepy whispering killer voice guy like calls her name.
Yeah.
And he goes looking. So now Marcus goes looking for her. Finds out she's been stabbed in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
I think she still has the knife sticking out.
Yeah, she does.
But
you would think that Marcus, being Marcus, would just fucking pull the knife out.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I'm going to pull this out, and I'm going to stick you on some broken glass and pull you off of that, and see if that kills you.
But he doesn't.
Idiot. Fucking weak girl. So the guy. So he's like, hey, killer guy, I know who you are. No sense in running anymore. Turns out it's Carlo.
Yeah. Because he saw the name on the art, right?
Because he saw the name on the art. It was signed by Carlo.
Yeah.
And he's like, Carlo.
Come on, Carlo. You know it's you. Man? What's up, man?
And we think, well, that's odd.
Yeah. Because
he was on the street when
we were way ahead of Marcus at this point.
But Marcus figures, okay, so Carlo tries to run away from the police because the police come, and this is
this scene
amazing.
Is spectacular.
So he tries to run away from the police. He runs out into the street, and he gets clipped by the little street sweeper thing. So the street sweeper thing is kind of coming through, and he gets clipped by it. Or it was a garbage truck or something. It was something that was there cleaning up garbage. And he gets clipped by it, and he falls down. And something on the back of the truck hooks his foot, and now he's being drugged throughout the goddamn town. And he's like basically getting all of the layers of his back and his ass shaved off of him. And he's being swung around. Well, he gets the truck stops, which causes him to kind of swing out a little bit, and just then, another truck coming the other direction runs over his fucking face.
Yeah, it crushes his face,
and he's like, God, he's fucking dead.
It's amazing.
He gets it so bad.
It is this almost Rube Goldbergian death scene of epic proportion.
Yes. Yeah, because it's like
He gets it worse than anyone in all 3 movies that we saw that night. It was amazing.
yeah, it was fantastic. And so 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 everybody thinks like, well, all right, well that solves that. It's like, well, we got our killer, he's dead. I guess justice came for him. And so Marcus is walking back home, and he goes by the little street where he first met Carlo and where he saw the murder happen.
Because something's not sitting right with him.
And he's still trying to piece things
And
together.
honestly, the audience is like, yeah, it doesn't sit right with us. We know that it couldn't be Carlo in the apartment.
Right, and he is...
And he's still stuck on the painting.
Yeah, because he feels unsatisfied.
Right.
Because he never got any answer or any conclusion to the painting.
The whole reason for his investigation is this
Yes.
thing with the painting.
And so he's walking around, and he's like at that little place where the diner is, and he's like, wait a minute. And he thinks back, and he's like, it can't be Carlo. He was with me.
Right.
I am his alibi.
Yep.
So he goes up to the psychic's apartment, breaks through the police tape.
Yeah, he doesn't give a fuck.
He doesn't give a fuck. He's a pianist.
Yeah,
he's much more important.
Trust me, I'm a pianist.
Yeah, fucking asshole. So he goes in, and he's looking at all these paintings on the wall, and they are all fucking nightmares.
Yeah, they are.
And they're like creepy ass paintings of like ghouls and ghosts and goblins and fucking whatever you got, man.
They are
Throw 'em
really,
in there.
really terrifying. And it
They
makes
are.
it makes you wonder about that, because this is the psychic's apartment. So is this like the shit that she is tormented by?
I think so. I think she is drawing this herself.
Yeah.
And so he comes up to a mirror on basically a perpendicular hallway, and he sees a mirror, and he sees in the mirror the reflection of another painting, and he stands like basically looking into the mirror, and he almost looks like he's become part of a painting, and he looks at it and he kind of studies it he's like, there's not a missing painting.
Yeah, he's like, I'm an
I
idiot.
saw the reflection. I'm an idiot. I saw a reflection, and the killer was still there.
Yeah.
When I came in.
Yep.
And that's when the killer shows up, and it turns out to be crazy mom of Carlo,
Yes, crazy mom of Carlo.
who went crazy and killed her husband.
So there's this quick flashback.
Yes.
Because I don't know if it's in place of exposition of her or what, but yeah. So there's this quick flashback of Carlo's mom, dad, and little Carlo, and this sort of idyllic home. It's Christmas time, and Carlo's mom and father are in the kitchen arguing, and the dad is basically saying, we need to take you back to the hospital. It's for your own good. It's for the best. It's what we need to do. I know you don't want to go, but that's what we need to do. And she's like, I don't want to go to the hospital. I'm not going to go to the hospital. And she, does it happen in the kitchen, or does it happen in the living room?
The living room, because he's playing in the living room, and the dad comes out.
Yeah, and then Carlo's mom comes into the living room with a knife.
Giant knife.
Yeah, a huge knife, and stabs Carlo's dad right in front of him.
Yes, and so now that probably leads to his alcoholism. She's already nutty, and probably even more
and
nutty.
Dad
now.
is the dead body boarded up in the house.
Yes, and so what happened? What we find out is that she was the person at the lecture who had these thoughts that was being picked up by the psychic. And to protect herself, she killed the psychic. She then attempted to kill the guy who came to help the psychic, Marcus.
Yeah.
But all of the other deaths was Carlo protecting his mother.
Yeah.
That's why the music wasn't heard.
Right.
And that's why she knew who the killer, or why Rigetti knew who the killer was.
Right.
When she was killed by Carlo. So it's a neat twist. There was 2 twists, ultimately. The one twist was, it was the person that we should have trusted from
when
the
the
whole
music
time.
was playing, it was Carlo or Carlo's mom?
Mom.
Oh wow, okay.
Because the music played when the psychic got killed, and then when David was or when Marcus was attacked.
Yeah.
Actually,
I don't
maybe
know.
it was the other way
I
around.
don't know. I think it's the other way around.
Was the music playing when the psychic was killed?
I think so.
So I think the music indicates it was
Carlo's mom.
Carlos' mom. And the non-music was Carlo because he was trying to clean up anybody else who could potentially point a finger.
So, all right. So I don't understand then. Ragetti. She wrote the story. She wrote the
story,
The House of the Screaming Child,
which was about the murder.
But about which murder?
The murder of the father.
But why? But then what? That doesn't make any sense because the father's body was walled up in the house.
Yeah.
Did they never find the body?
They never found the body.
But how do they know there was a murder?
I don't know. That's what I saw in Wikipedia.
This is some bullshit.
We're gonna pull that up here real quick because. Or wait a minute, hang on a second.
Because that was my biggest confusion.
Because that was why I went to
Ragetti
Wikipedia.
was like, what is her whole role in this? Why does it even matter?
Right, that's why I went to...
But if there wasn't a body in the first place, why would there be an investigation? It's weird.
Yeah, let me...
But clearly, little Carlo was drawing pictures
of what happened.
What happened because he was a traumatized little boy, right?
Right. All right, so here's the... okay, so... investigating the source of the music tune and the folktale.
So is this a folktale?
Yeah. Okay, so the search leads Marcus to a story from a book written by Amanda Ragetti titled House of the Screaming Child, which describes a long-forgotten murder. Marcus tries to find Amanda to talk to her about the book, but the unseen killer arrives at her villa first and kills her by drowning her in a bathtub filled with scalding hot water. The dying Ragetti manages to write a message on the wall of the steam-filled bathroom before expiring. Marcus then finds the body, but afraid that the police will think he did it, and leaves the place without calling anyone. Thanks to a picture from the book, Marcus locates the house where the folktale originated and learns that the caretaker... So, yeah, there is some sort of folktale...
So there's a connection to
surrounding,
it.
Right.
But there wasn't necessarily like a murder. It was just the kid...
It was a folktale
about her, which honestly, I mean, Carlo's mom was obviously sick, mentally deranged already.
Right.
Maybe there's a whole story there that we don't really know.
Right. I think that the whole story is just a folktale about somebody who went crazy.
Yeah.
And a kid that was affected by it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's and she based it on people that she probably lived near. I mean, it was probably like, oh yeah, I knew that.
It's pretty
kid.
thin. I don't know, but we'll go with it.
But it's still the twist of the person that we should have trusted was a killer, and a person who seemed to be too crazy to be able to. But I think, because I think Martha, the mom, I think she says that her boy was just trying to protect her mother.
Yeah.
Or his mother.
Yeah, she does.
And so basically any deaths that were not the attempt on Marcus and the death of the psychic was the son. I think.
I think you're probably right.
Or was, yeah. So basically Ragetti and, because, yeah. I don't know. I think it would have been better if it was Gianna.
I know. She was awesome. I want the Gianna remake.
Yeah, I mean, so here's my. I have kind of a terse relationship with this movie, a little bit.
Well, how does Martha end up dying? We talk about that?
Oh no, we haven't talked about that.
I don't remember. Like she dies.
Yeah.
In typical Argento fashion, which I always appreciate. They don't belabor the death, like the confrontation. It's usually, oh, you're the killer. Oh, really quick struggle. Oh, killer dies.
Yeah.
Like that's really, really cool. And then it's you have been watching Deep Red.
Yeah. Her death is actually, it's pretty close to her son's.
Well, I forget what happened.
Okay, so she's like basically going crazy, and she's like, "You killed my son because he was only trying to protect me. He didn't do anything wrong."
Oh, I remember now. Yes.
So her pearl necklace gets stuck in the elevator. And Marcus sees that, and he's like, "Going down."
Yeah.
He didn't say it, but I wish he had.
Yeah.
And he clicked the little button, and the elevator starts to go down, and it strangles her, and then it completely and totally decapitates her.
Yeah, it wasn't a pearl necklace. It was like a very kind of like a metal of some sort. But yeah, it does. It totally decapitates her. It's awesome. It goes straight through her neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so and like it ends on the pool of blood from her dead body.
You have been watching Deep Red.
Yeah. So Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, there's some things about this movie that I really really like. The scenes in which somebody's being stalked and being killed, those are really good scenes.
Yeah.
The composition's really good. But you're right. Marcus is not likable. There's there's very little not much reason to root for him.
No.
Although other than you're kind of on the journey with him, so you kind of don't want.
Well, you've got to be on the journey with someone,
right? And
if there's a movie and
Yeah.
you're just stuck with Marcus, is what I feel like.
And so you kind of want it to be solved just because you're on the journey with him, but you don't.
Right.
Really. This is really not much different than most other giallos that I've seen, because that's really what this is. It's a killer. It's a very realistic kind of. I mean, some things are a little unrealistic, but I mean it is a realistic scenario. It's not a monster or a zombie or anything like that. But you do usually get a pretty good start and a pretty good end, and in the middle you get the investigation and you get the cause and the reason and the why. While this movie always moves forward, and it doesn't feel very long. I mean, it's like an hour and 40-minute movie, I think.
Yeah.
But it keeps moving, and that's one positive. But the other problem is that there are a lot of these types of movies where the lead character, the character you're following, is just simply not a very likable person. And if this was based on a book, was it based on a book?
I feel like it was, but maybe not.
It was produced. Well, I guess not.
I think for me, what part of the problem for me too is that the clues, the investigation, it just doesn't really feel like it makes a whole lot of sense. Like everything kind of comes to a head because of this folk story that was
incidentally there.
Yeah, that the associate of this parapsychologist knew about.
Yeah.
That was just happenstance. Well, why don't you follow this lead? It could have been one of a fucking million things.
That's true.
You know, it's very convenient.
There's a lot of things that just happen because they happen. I mean, like the little girl having a copy of making a copy of the drawing is convenient that it existed in the first place.
Right.
The fact that the kid that Carla drew it twice is convenient as fuck. You know, I didn't draw anything I ever did twice. You know, I mean, so and I did a lot of killing.
I used to draw these little like cartoon Frankensteins. Yeah, I don't know if I have any more anywhere somewhere. Maybe somewhere in my parents' house. But I used to draw these cartoon Frankensteins. I used to draw a shit ton of them. So I mean, if you're a traumatized kid, I could see you drawing the same like image that's burned into you over and over again. I can buy that. I can't buy how they got there.
Yeah. So I mean, it's, you know, in other movies that I've seen, there's another one, I can't think of what the title is, but the whole movie is a guy who is he's married, he's a photographer, and he married one of his models, and he hates his wife, and he ultimately killed her. And then you don't really know whether or not he killed her, but the cop that you then that is constantly hanging around knows that the guy killed his wife, and you get the impression that he could, because he keeps saying that she's haunting him because everybody can see his wife but him. But the whole time the guy is like, I didn't kill her. It's like he can't account for what that time was. But the cop is such a fucking prick to him that you can't root for the cop, but the cop was right and you know he's right.
Right.
And that's just how these types of movies are. And that was a fucking Italian movie too. It's fucking assholes. And it's like this cop was so fucking full of himself.
Inspector.
Yeah, and he's like just such an ass. But yet you know he's right. Yeah. And it's like that gives you nothing to root for.
Right.
Ultimately, because the guy that you hate is the right, and the guy that you do like is the killer. You just can't remember that he's the killer. And it's a lot of shit like that. It's like we have the situation here where you have
Well, I feel like it's yeah, with this Giallo films, maybe it's almost like a paint by numbers sort of thing, but the numbers are rearranged and it's different colors every time. You know, it's just we have all the same pieces of this formula. We just jumble them up for the next one.
Yeah, it's the same picture but different color. Like
Yeah.
you said, yeah, it's like instead of mostly red, it's mostly green,
Right,
or whatever. Yeah, it's I mean, but the thing is though, it's like this movie is exceptionally well made.
Absolutely.
And if I was to, I mean, it's a movie that I'd watch again.
Yeah, I would too.
I mean, even though I don't like the lead character, I don't love the conclusion, there are things in the movie that are fucking great. And there are some legitimately creepy and scary parts.
Yep, most definitely.
So for that alone, fucking watch this movie.
Yeah.
I mean,
don't not watch it.
yeah, I mean, it's a movie that stars a character that you end up not liking at all. You can't understand why he would consistently put himself at risk. I mean, yeah, granted, his name's now in the papers as being a witness. That hurts. That's a bummer. But get some fucking protection and just fucking wait until this whole thing blows over. Goddamn.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's the you know, the yellow belly in me. I don't know. But it's fuck. I mean, stop, dude. Just go away. You're about to die. You've been almost dead 3 times.
He had to make his memory whole, Jeff. They had to make his memory
I can
whole.
live with that. I can later find out what.
Yeah, it won't bother me.
Yeah, it's like death or not having a whole memory. I'll take the not having the whole memory.
Yeah.
But still, I would say if we were to grade this, because here we got a music teacher.
Yeah. We still have to give it a grade, right?
I'd give it a B minus.
Yeah, that's where I was gonna go with it too. And B minus is probably right, but I keep thinking about that Goblin score, and I keep thinking about, man, I gotta track that one down. I'm gonna give it a B. I'm gonna give it a B because this one's gonna stick with me just because of that music.
Well, yeah, the music's good, but I mean the pieces are better than the whole.
Yeah.
And so the math is fucked up, and that's why I think it throws my brain for a loop.
Well,
and I'm like, I got to give it less than it really deserves because the pieces, if you add up all the pieces, it's like, fuck, I love this movie.
Yeah. Well, I like movies like that. I love movies like that. I love movies that don't add up, but that every little element is awesome. Like Southland Tales. Richard Kelly's Southland Tales is a perfect example of that. That is a movie where every single piece of that movie is amazing, but none of it belongs together, right? And for that reason, and that reason alone, I will constantly go back to it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm quite there with Deep Red, right? I don't know that I would get excited to watch it again. I would get excited probably to show it to somebody.
Yeah, if for nothing else, just for that fucking doll.
Yeah.
Yeah. God damn it, that fucking scared me, man.
But I mean, I'm rating it higher than you are at this point anyway.
Yeah.
So what the fuck? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, because it's like if I summed up all the pieces, it's like, well, fuck, all the pieces add up to an A+. But I don't like it more than Suspiria, and I didn't give that an A+.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck.
Fuck that.
Yeah, it's like you're. This movie's like dating somebody you don't really want to date, but you got to date somebody.
Geoff Arbuckle, metaphors on the fly.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think that puts a what is it? Pin a cushion or see, I'm metaphors on the fly with Jason Oliver. I think
pins the tail on the dog.
I think that pins the tail on the Giallo.
Yeah, pins the tail on the Gianna.
So yeah, the Gianna. I would pin a tail on the Gianna. She's kind of a kooky one.
I said she looked like a mannequin. She kind of looks like a mannequin.
She's a cuter mannequin. She's kooky.
She is, but I mean, I guess that's kind of my thing. So
we were both also very glad that Gianna wasn't the killer, but we are also very sad that she wasn't the killer.
She was the most capable person of the whole movie.
Yes.
She should have been also capable enough to kill.
She should have. Yeah, she wasn't even instrumental in figuring it out at the end.
Yeah.
She just got stabbed. What a
Yeah.
bummer. What a
At the
bummer.
end, all she said was "me too."
Yeah.
I got stabbed too.
Yeah. But anyway. Okay.
All right. Well,
I think that
so that pins the tail on that.
pins the tail that puts the bow on deep red.
Yeah,
All right.
puts a red bow on deep red.
Jeez. Oh well. Next episode we are going to tackle the bird with the crystal plumage. This is Dario Argento's directorial debut. Which is kind of interesting in that sense. I think we both kind of liked it for the most part, but
yeah, it's a tight little movie.
Yeah, it really is,
and it's So we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks, but make sure to keep checking filmseizure.com for new material that we will be putting out there every few days.
And look for us on the Facebooks, the Twitters, the Instagrams, and all of those things.
Yep, and so be sure to check us out in a couple of weeks. And until then, I am Geoff Arbuckle.
I'm Jason Oliver. This is Film Seizure.
And we will see you next time. This is a fucking nightmare. God damn it.